Thank you again for being here. The purpose and objective of this meeting, we're going to do three things, or we hope you at least walk away with one of the three things. At least a new connection you want to build something with, a story or insight that shifts how you see the problem, and a sense of what you want to dig into together at our next session in 2 weeks. Okay, now I am just warming you all up with the next slide. What's the most surprising food thing you've ever seen wasted? So everybody needs to participate here. It can be one line, it could be from work, it can be from a wedding, it could be from your own fridge. I promise not to judge. A friend's fridge, we can judge a little bit more, but everybody put in the chat here. What's the most surprising food thing you've ever seen wasted? Just going to take a minute here to just keep getting our minds around food waste today. Don't be shy. For example, I learned very early on in the food waste world that you do not have to waste the watermelon rind. And that is not how I grew up, right? We always threw away the watermelon rind, but it's really good actually sauteed, like chunks. And it's really good actually if you have a dehydrator, which not everybody does, but you can sprinkle some watermelon flavor on top of a cupcake as well. So really fun to kind of do alternative ways to use watermelon rind. We saw most surprising whole trays of catered delicious Thai food. Oh my gosh. Corks, bruised fruit, not moldy, thousands of pounds of potatoes. I know, it's just heart-wrenching when it's totally food that can be reused and repurposed. Any buffet food for sure. Okay. So we have two speakers who are joining us today, Aaliyah and Beth. Welcome. Thank you so much for being willing to chat with us. But before we get into titles and programs that you've all worked on, which one of those answers that's in the chat hits closest to you? Hits closest to home for you?
Catering.
Tell me
Catering,
more.
For
yeah.
sure. It's a big one. And it's also I feel like the easiest because at a bigger scale, I think that's one we can handle.
It's catering plus one.
Is it the same in catering? Like both of you are just saying what's left over because it's already paid for? Like why catering? Tell me one more reason.
There's excuses as to why the food can't be donated, but there's so much produced in the first place.
Mm.
I also think because there's so much planning that goes into bringing catering, and to me, food surplus, food waste is a design flaw. And if we can just embed the planning for food surplus into the planning that went in that just already went into getting catering in the first place, then I think, yeah, that's why.
Planning. Yeah, thank you for contributing to that. Okay, so Aaliyah Canso, did I say that right? Hopefully.
Close. Alia Ganso. Yeah.
Alaya?
Alia.
Alia. I will practice that. I'm so sorry that I did not have that right to begin with.
That's right.
Alia. Okay. Alia Canso, still Canso. Okay, is the founder and principal of Carry On Consulting, and they previously worked on food waste at the Chase Center. Some really good stories I hope to hear about the large amounts of waste that they reduced. Beth Bodner is the commercial zero waste coordinator at the San Francisco Environment. She uses food waste from the city and enforcement side, including SB 1383. And we paired you two because you see food waste from different angles. So we're curious to hear your perspectives. And of course, no judgments, but we will compare notes. So if you wouldn't mind, Imbo, before we move on to getting into the questions here, could you pop up the slide for me? One thing I'm going to ask all of you great active listeners to do, if you, as you listened to these questions and answers, as you listen, would you please drop a banana in the chat when something sounds exactly like your world, and a light bulb when you hear something you want to steal? So we'll put that in the chat so you can remember what we're looking for here. A banana when it's exactly like your world, been there, totally figured that out with the same vigor. and then a light bulb. When you hear something, you're going to totally take that idea and run with it. That'd be great. Thank you. Okay. Now, moving into the questions. Alia, we are going to start with tell us about your work context. What challenges are you seeing in the food waste world right now?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. I created the food recovery program at the Warriors ahead of the SB 1383 deadline, although it was very, very helpful in doing so. I was at the Warriors for 3 years as their first ever sustainability manager and helping to create their first sustainability program. I left in January 2025 to help other organizations create the operating system that really helps climate programs like food recovery thrive and sustain. And I think the biggest challenge that I'm seeing is that many businesses see food waste as a part of business and not as a design flaw. And I think because of that assumption, people don't typically want to pay for this work because if they see it as an inherent part of this business, the idea that they should pay to fix it almost feels backwards. Um, and that's, I think, one of the biggest trends that I have seen specifically in this intersection of work.
Okay. I'm not seeing any bananas, so there must not be someone else who's exactly at that intersection yet. So maybe we need to talk about a time when you've actually hit a wall trying to move something forward in your organization. So what happened? What did you learn?
Mm. Yeah, when I was first starting the food recovery program at the Warriors, I ran into a number of fronts, which I think are examples of obstacles that are actually covers for the real reasons that people don't want to do something. Uh, a common one was there's a legal risk, which was really the legal team being like, we haven't actually done any research, but that seems right. There was also,
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I have to
yeah,
interrupt.
yeah,
That's legal. That seems right. Okay.
where it's like that's probably true, but it's not because if you did one Google search, you would find multiple things that would protect your your donation as assuming you did it in good faith. And so but it's always an easy it's an easy front, right, to just be like we actually this we didn't look it up, we don't know. Another one I heard often was we don't have the money, which is interesting because you're willing to lose it by throwing it away and also have it be paid for and picked up by your waste hauler later on in the stream. And then similarly with the idea that it's not safe to eat, which usually was a front for like we're kind of worried about our reputation or our brand.
Mhm.
And I think getting people to buy in was the hardest part, but it was also the most rewarding. And the reason why the food recovery program was more successful is because it didn't just rely on me and the goodwill of the people doing this, but it's like they saw what this program meant to them and then they became invested. And um, yeah, but those are some of the challenges, some of the walls I had to run into to get food recovery up and running at Chase Center.
Hmm. And I do see some bananas showing up in the chat. So does anyone else want to talk about a challenge that sounded so similar to Alia's? Bring it up, talk about it. We're all friends here.
I don't mind sharing. Hi,
Yeah.
everyone. I'm Jen. I work for the Santa Clara County Office of Education, so I'm trying to support schools with this work. And I think at a school level, you mentioned a couple things about the safety of it as well, because we're trying to encourage when students don't take food to leave it out, for the share tables and all that. And then the food service folks are like, no, you can't do that. There's a lot of legal things that they are worried about because the federal government has requirements, the state, anyway. So I'm sure you all know this, but yeah. And then also trying to figure out if we're going to do the waste sorting where, who our waste providers are. There's a lot of complications with that too. So just bananas all around, as someone else said, for sure.
Yeah. So with your waste sorting and with legal things, have you found anything works or helps you, Jen, while we have you?
Just kind of reinforcing that it is law, that there is a law that they have to follow, SB 1383, making them aware of that and that there are districts now that are getting fined. So they're realizing like, oh, we do need to follow this. And we also need to the next thing is really educating everyone about it. And so, um, but there are some districts that are finally getting it down. There's still a few that are figuring it out, and we're getting there. So yeah, but nothing that's like Cal Recycles, that definitely helps us a lot. And we do have a local joint venture. Silicon Valley helps us a lot. So we're getting the right partners too to help us too. Thanks.
Yeah, and I know Beth is going to talk to us a little bit more about SB 1383. I want to dog ear the idea of like, okay, we're getting down to like when you have to do something about it. So the hustle of getting it done. So I'm going to dog ear that, Beth, for when we come back to you. But back to Alia. Thank you for contributing, Jen, by the way. All of you are welcome to bring up an idea or a question or a thought that's similar, especially if there's a banana all around. Okay, so what is a pattern, Alia, that you keep seeing that maybe most people in this room haven't experienced? And maybe that has to do with just the sheer size and volume of food that might have gone through the Chase Center or another project that you worked on that I'm not aware of. Feel free to share. Yeah.
I think what I had to learn in this role in particular was that oftentimes I think we lead with the wrong things. Like if we lead with what the person we're talking to actually cares about and not what we want them to care about, it goes a long way. And so in particular, when I'm thinking about like food recovery, when I was talking to legal, like had I brought up the Good Samaritan law before they could give me an excuse about this being a legal risk, if I was talking to marketing and showed them like, here's the story you can tell, here are the impact metrics that we're going to track is going to help you and your team. Or if I was talking to the food and beverage team and said, like, this is how you're going to save money, this is how you're going to hit your own company's sustainability goals, and you're going to be able to give your employees something to feel good about. Uh, I just think if we can start the conversation with what is most material to them instead of just trying to convince them of why we think this is a good program to do. And this doesn't just happen with food recovery. This is just with trying to make sustainability happen in a corporate setting in general. It's a underrated skill to be able to translate sustainability into the language of the people who don't have sustainability in their title.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so language expert, give us an example. Do you mind if you can think of one, a good example of how you've helped to translate it for them, or maybe some pushback you got that helped you figure out how they could hear the message? So it's not just that you went to them with a message and said, this is the message. Like there was something there. Could you tell us a little more?
Yeah. I have to also shout out Project Drawdown's Climate Action at Work framework. If you haven't seen it, go look it up after this call. It is an incredible framework because it basically shows you like some of the ways you can start conversations with folks in different departments. And it was in seeing this resource and trying to understand like sometimes it's also just about like having a relationship with that person, right? Are you just talking to the legal team because you need something from them? Are you just talking to the marketing team because you need something from them? Like, how can we actually create and build relationships with people and within departments that we rely on, especially if you're like a team of one, like I was, it's like, sure, my title said sustainability, but like I could not do anything without building relationships with other departments that I needed their support on. And so, yeah, that was a really helpful tool. But I used that tool basically to make a framework that was specific to the Warriors. And same thing with the clients I work with now. Like, what does that framework look like? If sustainability is the glue holding all these pieces together, like, what is it that the ticketing team and what is it that the procurement team and what is it that the accounting team actually needs to do? And how does it fit into their specific goals, right? Usually, departments will have their own particular OKRs or objectives and key results that relate to the broader organization's goals. And once you figure out how what you're doing relates to what the business is doing and you can talk about it, yeah, that's what really made the difference.
Yeah, and what a great perspective to look at it as the glue. It reminded me, I worked in the wine industry for a bit, and in European wine, they talk about the sauce that covers the food, and that's what they think about wine. Whereas in the US and New World, we think about the wine as just something you drink on the porch. So when you talk about sustainability as the glue, I think about it like drenching as a sauce to hold everything together. And I'm not sure many organizations are thinking about that. They might be thinking you're the department over here and you're pushing for other things. So that's a great perspective to think through.
Totally.
Thank
And
you.
it's definitely
Yeah.
how it started, right? I was like, I'm a team of one, but I can't be on an island because I'm not going to get anything done. And I ended up starting the Climate Collective, which was an internal community of practice to try and get other employees on board. And we were able to get in the first year about 16% of the employee base into the Climate Collective. And it didn't start with me saying, like, here's my sustainability goals and here's what I'm trying to do, and here's how we could use your help. I did a survey and asked what everybody was interested in from their own perspective. It didn't even have to be related to their job. It could be personal. Like, what's a personal environmental or sustainability thing that you care about? Some of it was like green 401ks, some of it was like volunteer opportunities. Somebody had no idea what was actually going on in the building. So we did a tour, like, back of house of all of the sustainability things. But the Climate Collective was really helpful too, because then it just got people to start talking about sustainability in meetings and in rooms that I was never going to be in anyway. I'm one person, like I can't be in six things at once, but if I can get people to start thinking about it and talking about it, and it just kind of like light bulb in their brain when they're, working on their own projects. And I've now created like a little, it's like the network, the network underneath the soil of like people all communicating about this and talking about this and thinking about this from their own perspective.
Yes, I'm liking the collective that you created. Was there any pushback with leadership about you saying, "Hey, I want to send out this survey"?
Um, you know, a little. There was actually more pushback on some of the questions that I put in there in particular, like the green 401k. I remember HR had come up to me after I presented on that and kind of gave me a slap on the wrist, because then it kind of like opened this Pandora's box of, if we don't have green options, fossil free options in our 401k, like that is truly something that our HR team has control over. But they just were not ready or maybe willing at that time to have that conversation around what that would actually take. Not a lot, to be honest, but yeah, there was definitely some pushback there.
Ooh, thank you for being honest with that example. I put you on the spot with that question,
Yep.
and yeah, rightly so. And you were stretching even beyond food as part of your responsibility there as well, which is it's great. It's holistic view. It's all along the chain that everybody's contributing some kind of choice that they can make about climate and sustainability. So kudos. Okay, and so can you tell us? We have about 2 more minutes. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of which question I like the best. Um, tell us about the team you worked with. Well, you kind of did just tell us about the team you worked with and how you got them on board. So tell me about the size of the organization and making the program possible. And did it create obstacles along the way, maybe beyond the getting in trouble for the survey? And would you be able to replicate it to a smaller business, or was it just something you could do because you had the scale? So there was a lot of questions in that one.
Yeah, no, I think I got them. So the size of the organization, I think, could maybe at some points was a detriment and was also a benefit, because I think the physical size of our building was actually probably the hardest part. It wasn't as easy as saying, like, go to the front door and somebody will meet you. Like, Chase Center is a very complex, and most sports and entertainment venues, but also like hospitals and museums and hotels have access points that are not just like, yeah, walk to the front door and open the fridge and it's in there. Uh, we had to find a space that was both easily accessible to our kitchen staff, but also in the loading dock, because that's where a lot of that movement was happening anyway. And so that just posed a really big, just operational, like physical space challenge. Uh, and then additionally, because of the events and just the industry, the sports and entertainment industry it's a very fast-paced industry. So I wanted to find like a more turnkey food recovery organization. And because of that, I also need to figure out how to make the business case for it, because I was going to need a budget to actually pay somebody to help us do this service.
Mm.
And then on the flip side, I think the reputation, so like the bigness of our organization from a figurative perspective, was a benefit because now people are paying attention, right? Like, oh, the Warriors are doing something. Like, I'm gonna keep my eyes on that, and I'm gonna look at that. And I tried so hard to kind of like Robin Hood the best I could. Was like, I will use at Warriors in every way that I can to get the attention of folks that I'm curious about working with within the climate space. And vice versa. Like, how do I get other sports entertainment and other like large venues and facilities to like use us as a model? And so I was constantly having conversations with people within sports, within entertainment, just more broadly about like how this is replicable and not just within sports and entertainment, but some of the details may change and some of the minutia might change, but the base structure is really the same, whether it is for food recovery in this case or something else, right? Like you need to figure out where the food is going to be stored. You need to figure out like who your point of contact is to, yeah, handle the logistics, and you also need to figure out like what's the financial, how is this program going to sustain itself? Is it based on goodwill and a good year in business, or is there something else that you can do to make sure that this program is going to outlast the real life world business pressures?
Ooh, there's a lot of good nuggets in there. I need more than one light bulb. I really appreciate that you looked at the Warriors and said, I'm going to Robin Hood this. To use the power of your brand is pretty cool. And hopefully people will look at what you've built and be able to take some pieces of it. So thank you so much for all your contributions. Stick around because we're going to get everybody talking a little bit later. But we first want to hear a little bit more from Beth so we can compare and contrast the differences and the similarities. But before I get started, just because sometimes we don't always understand what we do, I wanted to make sure and kick off with Beth finishing this sentence. You ready, Beth? All right. People assume my job is blank, but most of my time actually goes to blank.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna ask a question back, but people might assume my job is on the ground helping distribute food, which would be cool. But most of my time actually goes to gathering data, building enforcement infrastructure, working in Salesforce, making sure I have accurate business data, such as about Chase Center, um, sending a lot of emails. And the fun part is getting to allocate grant funding to the organizations moving through food around the city. So it's not that simple.
Yeah, awesome. So that's great. That's a great segue into you telling us a little bit more about your work environment and yeah, tell us more.
Yeah, so I've been with the Environment Department for 2 years to the day. And I actually was in tech before. I worked at a Fresh. So hopefully I can talk the talk to others in the room. But I kind of moved through the different sectors to land at the city. And my work has two sides to it. The first is ensuring the businesses in our city meet the state and local requirements to donate food. And there's a couple other small things they have to do. And like I said, there's a lot of behind the scenes computer work to that. And then the other side is supporting the organizations that are mostly nonprofits, but not always, to successfully recover food, whether that means through funding or if it's just conversations about what challenges they're facing.
Okay. And so can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you might see that they're facing?
Yeah, I mean, it's the usual. It's funding, resources. I think the really big one is that this is an unfunded mandate. So SB 1383, like I said, I'm newer to the government. I think it's a wonderful law. It's super impactful. The state has data that shows so much food has been recovered, which is great, but there's no money allocated to the organizations recovering food. So that means that they need to do a lot of grants and fundraising, or charge a fee for service, which I hope we'll get to talk about, that a lot of organizations I mean, this is a newer concept that you're charging to move food elsewhere because we look at it as trash. But we pay for trash. So
Yeah.
getting that concept across, I think is what we're facing right now.
Can you say more about that? It's a really interesting concept.
Yeah. So we know about Replate, and it sounds like people are from outside of San Francisco, which is nice in the room. But we have a couple of big players. We have Replate, Extra Food, the Food Bank, and more who pick up food from a business and then they generally drive it to an organization that will receive it and then distribute it to people in the community. And I want to say up until a couple years ago, this was kind of done for free. We've had for 40 years an organization called Food Runners, and they did the work for free um, because they saw an opportunity. But now that the demand for food recovery is really high, and the businesses have to comply because otherwise they might face a fine, the organizations recovering food, they need to charge. They can't do it for free anymore. And I know that Replay, this is a really big thing they're working on is how to just get the word out that this is not a charitable, well, it is, but this is not something that's going to be free forever. It can't be.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michelle, if you don't mind, I'm going to call on you because I saw the banana and I saw you shaking. So I think maybe you have something to contribute to this conversation.
So I'm calling in from Los Angeles, but I'm in the process of relocating back to the Bay, which is where I grew up. I work for a compost org, which is huge. We're a nonprofit, so it's free. And all the food rescue orgs in Los Angeles also still work for free because we are, I don't know, 10 or 20 or 30 years behind the Bay Area. So it's really interesting to hear where you guys are at. And I feel like, working in this space, I was a volunteer. I did this for free for a long time before I started actually getting paid for it. Um, and a lot of the extra partnerships I build with food recovery orgs, that's also free. That's my personal time. That I'm just like, it's easy for me to do that because I'm the person who's already there, but I'm not getting paid extra for it. Um, so I think it's cool to hear that that might be the future coming down the line is figuring out different ways to negotiate with businesses, why it's important to divert the food from the landfill or even the compost bin, and figure out how to convince people that it is super valuable, it's really important, and yeah, what are the financial models for sustaining them as businesses?
Well, Michelle, there is something so interesting in Los Angeles that was what I talked about all of last year. In the county, you have like many waste haulers, maybe like six or eight. And there's someone down there named Michelle Mikesell, and I might get it wrong, but the for every 100 accounts that the waste haulers serve, they have to pay something like $1,000 towards food recovery, which is really, really awesome because that helps fund food recovery. And we can't necessarily have that in San Francisco because we have one waste hauler only. So we don't have the competition. But it's something I would definitely look into, and I could put you in touch with Michelle. I actually think she's with the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to uh, look
That
her up.
what say that again? For every 1,000, what is it?
I might have the numbers wrong, but I think it's for every 100 accounts that a waste hauler provides service to. So they're getting paid. They then have to donate $1,000 to directly to a food recovery organization.
Hmm,
And it doesn't go to the city at all.
interesting.
All right. Okay. I'm liking this. Because they pay for trash, why wouldn't we pay for food being thrown away? Yeah,
Mhm.
I really like that. So when there's people who are resisting or stalling, what are some of the ways that you, aside of giving them the spiel that, trash you pay for, why not pay for food? What else do you do, or what's worked in the past to help move them along?
Good question. I mean, I can relate to so much that Alia shared, and it's so cool to meet you because I've heard so much about your work. We offer free technical assistance. That's something that the city really prioritizes, at least at the environment department. We are really not eager to issue fines. It's actually really new to us. So I have a colleague who her core role is to play matchmaker for businesses and donation recipients. So, for example, if we do an inspection and find that the grocery store is not compliant, we then put the store in touch with my colleague. She'll literally be your free consultant. She'll help you write a contract. She'll find you a partner. She'll tell you all you need to know about SB 1383. We're literally giving you everything you need to be successful. And a lot of the time this works. But a lot of the time there's a lot of non-responsiveness, like 10 emails, bunch of calls, just because I think the law seems not as serious as some other laws that we have in the state and in our city as well.
Yeah, and that might go back to how you get others involved in your organization. And I'm even thinking, Jen, in schools, when I was working with schools, a lot of pushback I got is the janitor is not going to separate food. The kids are going to mess up food. Like it's not, you have to get them all involved, even if it's, they're handling the waste logistics. So it is similar to what we were talking before, getting other people on board and having a free consultant is such a great opportunity. You need that person we talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago too. We need that person in the room who can help move the conversation forward. And how do you find them and get them, build that relationship ahead of time?
Yeah, it's a
Right
good
on.
question. I see a lot of questions. This individual works for Abby Consultants, which I can send out some more information on. She's actually older and she's one of the most persistent people I know. So if you're very persistent and you will not give up until someone gets back to you, definitely look into this type of work.
Right on. Okay. There was a question in there as well. How come the city doesn't contract with vendors like Replate directly, similar to the relationship between MRPS and municipalities?
It's a really interesting question. I guess it's because we're never touching food directly. We're regulating and making sure businesses are doing their part. Um, but it's a good question. And basically, Recology, that's our waste hauler. They are not a city department, but a lot of people I do think mix up that the environment department and Recology are connected. They're their own thing. And we also have to play checks and balances on them. So we wouldn't contract directly with Replate, for example, but we do provide a lot of funding to them and similar organizations. So we lift them up as best we can. But it is interesting. Maybe a waste hauler would consider adding a food recovery component to their practice.
Has anyone ever asked?
I don't think so. This just hasn't come up. I guess they're just so used to disposing and not redirecting.
Yeah. And I wonder if anyone on the call has ever asked their hauler, because everybody has a different hauler, right? So have you ever talked to your hauler? Do you know your hauler?
I've
How many?
talked to Recology and I've never asked them specifically about um their involvement in like waste recovery per se, but it would be really interesting to kind of pose the question to them.
I would say, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Refed, but
Yeah.
they're really great for data. And I got to go to the conference this year. I've been wanting to go for like 5 years. And I was kind of shocked to see that there was a really big focus on composting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us on the call would agree that compost is not food recovery. It's the
Mm-hmm.
last ditch. Um, so yeah, I feel like a waste hauler probably they want your compost and they want you to pay for it, but yeah, maybe they need to shift their narrative as well.
I mean, recall, sorry, one more second. I'm realizing that Recology, there's also, I mean, they have their own business model where people are purchasing their compost. So if they have, I don't actually know if it would create less compost for them. Like, would it actually be against their incentives to reduce food
Hmm.
recovery? Maybe there's like enough waste to go around that it doesn't matter, but I could see it being something that's counterproductive to their business model. I don't know if that's true.
I mean, yeah, they want more trash, they want more you know, our my team, the zero waste team at the environment department is funded by the refuse rates, which is kind of ironic because the more trash people create, our department exists, and we're just never going to have no trash. So we'll always be a funded team,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Michelle. You have a question?
I just had a comment about compost because I've been examining these just like cultural waste differences between the Bay and LA. LA has so many more waste problems, so compost is pretty good for what we're doing down there. And in the Bay Area, the waste management is so good that, food waste as compost, it goes off, it gets processed. It's better than the landfill, but some people have commented that it enables more food waste because people see it as like, well, it's not the landfill, it's not that bad. There's, yeah, and I want to learn more about this, but I generally agree that if people have a guiltless receptacle for their food waste, it could enable more waste. There are lots of parts of plant matter that are not necessarily edible, so there is going to be organic matter as waste that needs to be processed anyway. Um, and in LA, because community composting is a very visible version of compost and organics recycling. It does actually play a role in waste mindfulness. People start to see and participate in how much work it is to manage higher volumes of food. So they do. Jared's paradox. My friend's obsessed with that right now. Uh, but there's also other reasons that people compost besides waste management. And a few of the big ones that we're dealing with in LA is we've had a lot of fires, both wildfires and urban fires. Compost is amazing for soil remediation and sequestration of toxins. So people are using mass amounts of soil in place to remediate soils, water retention in a really dry climate. Um, so I know that I don't know, it seems like people really de-emphasize compost in the Bay, but I don't know, maybe I'm recognizing that part of my mission is to show that there is room for some kind of mid-scale, very visible participatory compost process that can also support minimizing people's waste and do all of these other things. But also, um, I think of it as sort of a big component of long-term food sovereignty. So food recovery is amazing and should always happen. Um, but also long term, if people can grow their own food in a decentralized way, because I know there's also people who are worried about food shortages and farmland getting developed. Compost education, soil education could be a huge part of that. So I just wanted to share that.
It is all connected. That's true. And yes, thank you for reminding us about the quality of the soil. And everybody needs better soil that really comes from that organic matter that you can break down. So good reminder there. And I do think your point about visibility and people actually seeing A, how hard it is, and B, where else they can use it is super eye-opening for a lot of people who are not usually thinking about it. So let's see. One more question for Beth, I guess. Here we go. Are there specific things that people get wrong about what's required of them? So have they either overcomplied with their waste effort, or have they undercomplied? Things you wish more people did about that.
The overcomply is very interesting. I don't think so. The only thing that comes to mind is like sometimes restaurants will say, oh, well, on Thanksgiving we donate 400 turkeys. But that's not SB 1383. That's great, but unrelated.
Yeah.
So it's generally just under complying. And I think the really big one is when is food safe to donate? And I'm excited about California has a new law that took effect on July 1st, simplifying the Best By dates. But when I, pulled it up, it's still confusing. I think it's just that if it says best if used by, that means peak quality, but used by is more like it's not safe if you eat it after this date. So they tried, but what's helpful for us is a lot of our inspections are done by a colleague at the Department of Public Health. Thank you. Yeah, AB 660. And because the Department of Public Health holds the food permits, if a business tries to say, well, this isn't safe, she can say, oh no, this is the safety requirements. I'm coming from the Department of Public Health telling you. So if anyone is trying to encourage food recovery where you are, if you can somehow be involved with your health department, it's just really helpful to have that agency in the room. And I think it's just concern over liability. And like we do have federal food donation protections, which is great. So yeah, it's generally just, is it safe? Am I going to get in trouble for this?
Mhm. Thank you for that. Okay, so if we were going to look at this from the perspective of Alia and Beth, being one is the regulatory body and one is the one who's responsible for making the event happen, where do you think the biggest, I was gonna say biggest challenge, but I'm not sure that's the right word. Like, what is the biggest hoop that you might miss each other on, as one is planning the program and one is regulating the program? Is there a big challenge in the way that the two bodies might communicate, or not?
I'll be totally honest. I feel like my job, I don't know. I often feel like I was on the side of whatever the SF environment department was doing because I agreed. And I was like, SB 1383, hell yeah, let's make this happen. And so we often worked together, right? Julie, I think I told you right before we started this call, I accepted a grant from the city of San Francisco, signed a contract. Like we went about that before I had a start date for food recovery internally because I knew budget was going to be a huge deal. And I was like, well, they're willing to give us money to start this right now. I can't say no because I know that is an obstacle here. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe for somebody who wasn't the sustainability person, um, and doesn't have somebody in the organization who can help translate like what is the compliance and like how does that actually relate to the business, I think there can be a really big challenge there.
Mm. Anyone else the translator in this room? Banana, anyone? Okay. I think that's a unique skill to be able to translate. So I was curious if we had others in the room that do it too. Okay, good, Michelle. I see a question from Nick. Is anything happening at a state, county, or city level to meaningfully reduce waste in household and commercial kitchens?
Yeah.
We did have, I'm not so much a part of this, but a really cool campaign that if you were in San Francisco, you might have seen on bus stops and on the bus, and even in certain neighborhoods at the grocery store under produce that would say, like, does food waste make you feel rotten? And then it was in other languages and have like gross images of rotten produce. And I think we're still gathering the data on the impact. And we also, kind of following that, are starting to do lid flipping, which means looking in bins for households, which I'm not sure the legality around that. So I think it's always like outreach and marketing, but it's really hard to know has this landed. And I think the refed data has said like the highest food waste is in the household. So how can you get into people's homes and help them understand? Oh, and then I guess I wanted to say one other thing. At the refed conference, a huge theme this year was prices are so high that, and it sucks. It's not a great thing, but people are finally like, things are so expensive. I can't waste as much anymore. So kind of a headwind.
Interesting. That's good. That's good. That's good that people are paying attention. I mean, maybe we have to get burned before we can move forward. And I do see the overlap in the two of you. What's similar is the data-drivenness of you both, that you're both using refed and you're both curious to make sure that what you put out in the world is based and grounded in the data that you can find. And so that's a good overlap between the two. It looks like, okay, Cal Recycle, you were just sharing some information. Thank you, Alia. All right. I think, we have a little bit more time. So since you were talking about refed, one of the things I saw in their report that they just put out, I guess in May, about the food operating system and AI, one of the things that really hasn't come up in these conversations, I'd love to just kind of noodle around a little bit, with industry, that they're saying, according to industry interviews in the report, AI-driven demand forecasting has helped prevent around 90,000 tons of food loss across 26 countries. And that AI-powered smart storage monitoring alone saves close to 9,000 tons of apples across 1,500 storage rooms. So we know that it works, but what do you think about the human interaction with AI and is it helping moving food waste awareness recovery move forward, or preventing it? Or is it stopping this awareness from people who are in the moment, right? Knowing better, like the store manager who overrides what the AI has recommended because they don't want to see an empty shelf. So what does everyone think? Or maybe I can start with our great speakers or whoever wants to talk first. I'm curious if we think AI is helping with the food waste conversation or maybe hurting it somehow.
Yeah, I just want to say quickly that from working at a Fresh, I had an experience of going to stores in Arizona and training them on how to use a Fresh is an iPad app that the store or produce managers at the time could use to help them forecast how many cases of each item they needed to purchase or order. And in the past, it would be done by someone who's done this for years or for months and is just kind of estimating. And I do really think this technology is so powerful. But then when the technology works, who is holding the power? This technology was informing huge grocery chains how much over ordering they were doing. But then what happens? And that's kind of what I'm thinking about is the businesses were throwing away money by ordering too much food. But were they really contacting the farmers and the distribution centers saying, don't produce as much? I'm not quite sure.
I'm waiting to see if there's anyone else who wants to contribute a thought on that, because I love that question and such a great thing that you're thinking about it already. Yeah. Is there a burning question that you would want to throw out into this group, or some challenge that you're working on right now? Oh, it looks like my internet is unstable. I apologize. Hopefully you can all hear me.
I
Good.
do. I have a question unrelated to AI, even though we're sort of
Yeah.
going down this path. I will say that I've talked to, I mean, like even Recology, I know really benefits from using AI in their like sorting system, and that helps them do a much better job at recycling and composting. I know that I don't know exactly how it's used in food recovery spaces, but um yeah, I think it's definitely helpful. And to Beth's point, it's really important who holds the power and who's talking to who across the system. But I actually have a different question to like everyone in the room, but I'm kind of curious about maybe more Beth, your perspective. Um, the more that I talk to people in this space, the more I feel the tension between people who are doing like food recovery, food recovery work and people who are on like the composting recycling kind of side. And I feel like a little bit of that has even come up in this conversation where last week we had this conversation around like, oh, should we even do any work to recycle or compost? Like, shouldn't we just totally focus on food recovery and eliminating food waste? And I'm wondering, yeah, how you navigate that on on the city level with multiple stakeholders. Do you see that tension in your work? And I'm just kind of wondering how it comes out, if it does.
Yeah, I can quickly say that in our climate action plan for 2026, we did put, and we might have talked about this in Bull, but the environment or the zero waste team, we put an action to conduct a food landscape assessment by 2028. And that just means understanding the food system in San Francisco. And a lot of questions have come up with this. There's like so much concern over food insecurity right now. It's a really big focus of our mayor and the city in general. But then we've been asked for a metric for food recovery. Like, what do we want to see happen? Do we want more pounds and more tons recovered? But for me, it kind of goes back to what you're saying, Inbal. I don't really want to see the number of pounds of food recovered to go up every single year because I want less to be wasted in general. Which is why something I really want is for us to incorporate the requirement that businesses tell us how much they donated, because right now it's just the recipient to report to us how much food they received. Because I want to have the data to go to a business and the Chase Center and say, well, you wasted, or yeah, you essentially wasted X dollars in 2025. That could have been avoided, and I hope you'll consider that next year. So I think it's a really serious question that I don't really know how to answer right now. But yes, we want people to eat the food instead of it going to waste, but that's not a sustainable way for people to eat. So where do you start?
It continues to be a wicked problem. Yes, one that just keeps getting bigger the more you find the answers to the questions. You find more questions. So thank you so much for being here, to Alia and Beth for contributing their stories, and Michelle and Jen, who's not here, and Nick and Shane and Grace and Iritza and Inbal. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hopefully you'll join us again in 2 weeks. Our next session is July 30th. If there's anything that you want to dive deeper in, feel free to shoot us an email, put it in the chat. We have some details coming about the next event in the chat right now. And yes, thank you so much. It was a great hour to spend with you all.
And we'll have people from the county of San Mateo and perhaps a chef at the next conversation.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all. Take care.
Okay, everyone.